So for step 13, the battery case, well, this is where it gets interesting because in actual fact, the battery case does not come with this kit. It's designed so that if you don't want to use a special battery pack, you can actually run this trike on AA batteries. Well, I decided that that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I got the battery case pop-up item, I suppose, or additional item for the kit. So where you see here, some kits do not include battery case. In such case, proceed to step 16. Well, if we didn't have all that to do, we would be moving right to checking the RC equipment. But in our case, we're going to build all of this up. So I'm going to open this up and we'll get started with step 13 and put together this battery box. So I've unbagged everything, and here is our battery case. Here are all these other pieces, which I've already cut off the parts tree, ready to go for step 13. And of course we've got all sorts of bits and pieces, bags of goodies, screws, etc. There's our battery cable, etc. But what's interesting is the actual battery case comes with its own instruction manual. But for the Dancing Rider, all the instructions for building that are actually in the instruction manual itself. So we're going to do this using the instructions that are in the manual. So to get started, you can see here, it's looking like we need this piece here, which is D4. And if we look at how that's going to go, well, you can see this mark here has to be that piece right there. So in terms of the direction, and you can see that these pieces here are going to sit like that down below, and then you're going to use one of these MB17s, which are these tiny little screws, which I'll grab a small screwdriver here, and we will put that down there. Get that level, and we will screw that in place. Looks about right. Screw it in more. And of course with these, you definitely don't want to over tighten, but we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So that piece there has to fit on the outside so that it's sitting like that. And again, we're going to grab the round-headed screw top, because there's two kinds. Make sure that's sitting correct. There we go. Yes. Make sure we get that in place. Yes. And we'll screw this one in all the way. And there we go. And you can see that they're actually sitting opposite each other, those metal pieces, right? Very interesting. So that part is done. So now we're going to put in the balls and the springs. So to do this, you can see that there has to be a ball on one end and the spring on the other. Now I'm going to see how this can go, because I need to push that in. Yes, so you see there, the ball sits right there on the inside of the spring. And we're going to have to do the same thing on the other side. So I am putting the ball on the end, and then I'm squishing that in like that. And that's how it's going to sit. And I'm sure the reasoning for this is there's that piece you can see here which locks it in place, which is what's going to push the balls to spread the springs apart. So that's ultimately what that's going to look like. And then to get to this side, as our last and final thing, we need to take this, and you can see that it's a square hole. We have two of these that go in, and they're one. If it'll go in, I need to get that flat and flat, and hopefully, no, the bottom one doesn't want to actually go in. I just need to get it flat. I'm using an Allen key and pushing it up from the bottom to hopefully help with getting it flat. There we go. Now it's in. And then we'll sit the other one right over top of it, just like that. So you can see there, I've put on the rubber cement. It's dried a bit now. It's not falling out. So what you need to be able to do is you can see that the alignment is this needs to be in line with that. And that piece there is going to sit inside of there. So we need to put that over top, push it down so it's in place. And now this part here is going to sit over top just like that. There. And again, see the outer plastic has a notch in it, which again is keeping everything in line. And now we're using the 4 flathead screws to screw this in place. So again, I'm going to grab the little screwdriver and I'm going to screw this down. Now the one thing you'll want to make sure of is that when you're doing this, this piece here doesn't pop off, because if it pops off, the little spring inside or the little balls could actually pop off and pop out. So I'm also managing to hold this down with my thumb to make sure that it's not going to move out of place. And again, I'm just going to go around here and make sure that all the screws are holding and nothing's binding, to make sure that this goes in nice and smooth. Now, because I'm already almost down, I'm going to screw these down a little more. Now, the other thing to watch out for is because these are small, you don't want to over tighten this. Otherwise you could end up stripping out the plastic. But this is going together quite well. Yep. So I'm at the end there. And you'll feel it. So you don't want to over tighten, but you certainly want to make sure that this goes in all the way. There we go. So there is step 13. So we've got this part finished. And you can see this will be designed to turn. And of course that's what those balls are for, to help with pushing the springs out. So that's great. That is battery case 1, step 13. So now we're going to move on to step 14 and do battery case 2. So for step 14, battery case 2. Well, this is essentially part 2 of putting this all together. So we need to grab the battery case, put in a terminal, and then this this piece right here, a screw pin, is going to go through, which will then attach to the piece that we built in step 13. And then of course we've got the battery cable, which is this one right here, which has to be connected to the terminal on the back side of this piece now, which will finish it off. So here is all the hardware that we need for this. And of course there's our pieces, the battery box, the end cap, and then of course the cable. So I'll set this up and let's put this together. So first off, with this battery box, there was a little piece here that I've removed off of this end when you're cutting it off of the parts tree. So once that's gone, it's going to be the open hole, which you're going to need when we end up connecting this part to the box. But for right now, you can see that we're going to need MB24, and you can see that if you look at this piece right here, you can see that there is the screw hole there and this, and you can see that the metal piece that's facing down needs to face inward, which makes sense because actually when you place that there, you'll see that it really is the only way that it can fit on. And it's an MB17, which is the only screw that we've got with the rounded head. You can see that if it'll focus. Come on, focus. Rounded head, rounded head. There we go, rounded head. So that's got to go there. We can get it in. There we go. And well, let's just grab our little screwdriver. Make sure that stays in. And we'll just screw this all the way in. Make sure that's sitting right. Yes. Yes. And again, don't over tighten because these are really small screws, so you don't want to strip it. But I am going to try and go to the end because you should feel a natural break, which I can see. I can feel that right there. So as soon as there's any kind of resistance, we know we're at the end. So that's ultimately what it's going to look like. You can see it from down there. I am going to do just one more turn just to make sure that I have that correct. Yes. So now you can see that with this, they're actually showing the spring washer going on first. Then you can see the MB7, which was the regular washer. That's going to go on there. And then this is going to slide right down through that hole. So it just pops right into place. And so it's going to ultimately look like that. So that part is done. So then we move on to this side. Now for this, a little bit different. So you can see here, we've got our other end cap, and we're going to need to place this here. And you can see that the way that is shaped, you're going to need to do one here and one here. And you can sort of tell here, like a black and a red cable. The black is the darkest. The light is basically saying it's the red. So if we make sure that that's going down on either side, which it might be, it's got to stay there and stay there. Now the question is, will it stay? In fact, there seems to be a little bit of resistance, like the way that it's popped on. You can see that there's a plastic piece that's going to fit into the holes of the brass pieces, and because of the way it's balanced and it's catching, it's not actually moving. So I'm going to see how that will fit without doing anything. Okay, so you can see that once that is there, this should be able to fit right on top of this. So because this pin is just sitting there, we're going to hold it this way. I can see that this is the direction that they're wanting it to be, and the hole from that is going to be facing this side. So I'm going to need to turn this a little bit here. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't pop off. But the point is, if you look at the way this is going to sit, this needs to sit that way. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to make sure that that sits just like that. Just got to make sure that the cables sit on either side. So hold up, I have to take that off for a second. They're supposed to fit on the inside. So one like that, one like that. So hopefully, ultimately, this is what it's looking like with the cables. And then we do this again. Make sure I've got this correct. That to that. Yes. So ultimately, this should fit on like that. There, just like that. And you can see that there are the 5 screws, which are, of course, these little flathead screws. So we need to get those in there now. So let's get one of them going. And again, I am not going to put this all the way in yet. I'm going to make sure that every screw fits into here without any problem at all. Well, let's do it this way. And 2 more to go. It's pretty interesting building a battery box as part of this build. Okay, so they're all in, so everything's feeling pretty good. So I'm going to now just tighten this all up. And again, don't over tighten because the screws are so small, you don't want to strip anything. There we go. So ultimately, there is that part of the battery box. So step 14, this is what it should end up looking like when you're finished. Very, very cool. Okay, so with 14 done, we're now going to move on to step 15 and install the batteries. So for step 15, installing the batteries, well, this is where we're going to grab some AA batteries and put them into the battery box. And of course, we're using the piece that we built in step 13, the piece that we finished building in step 14. And then of course, we're going to use a coin here to close the cap and make sure that everything is secure. So there's the 2 pieces that we built in the previous 2 steps. There's some batteries we're going to use, some good old Costco AA batteries. And we will put this together. So I'll set it up and let's do it. Okay, so let's grab our battery box and we're going to start putting these AA batteries in. You can see the whole plus minus situation. So plus minus, minus plus, Then on the other side, what we got? Plus, minus, minus, plus. So we got our 4 batteries in place. Now what we need to do is grab the cap, and you see the end piece again. There's only one. They're showing it at the top. I'm looking at this where the cable is, just like what it is in the diagram. So I am saying this needs to fit on like that. And of course that hole is what's going to fit onto here. So that's got to fit onto there. Just like that. And then it's showing twist shut using a coin. So if we grab a coin, well, I'm going to grab a handy dandy Canadian loonie, or funny money, which some people call it. So we're going to use a loonie here. And yes, that is the name of our coin. It is a dollar coin, and it is called a loonie. And we're just going to turn to close this up. You can feel it closing. There we go. I'll do one more turn here just to see. Yep. So there we go. There is our battery box complete, and it's all in there. So in order to change out the batteries, you just basically grab your loonie and twist it off again if the batteries are dead. Interesting. Well, that is step 15. Pretty simple. So we can move on now. So we're going to move on to step 16, and we're going to check the RC equipment.